The call ended with a hollow click that never came, and in that quiet space between breath and sound, Jonah Reyes learned a truth he was never meant to hear, a truth that would crack open his careful life and spill light into corners he had sealed shut for years. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unseen battles people fight every day, please pause for a moment after this opening and like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Spark, because stories like this live and breathe through your support. Jonah was a single father who measured his days in small, practical victories, like making it to work on time after walking his son to school, or keeping his temper steady when the bus ran late and the bills stacked higher than his hopes. Daytime always felt like a test for him, bright and exposing, leaving no place to hide his tired eyes or the weight he carried in his chest. He worked as a contract facilities coordinator for a towering glass building downtown, a place that smelled of polished floors and ambition. The building belonged to Whitlock Innovations, a fast-growing technology firm led by Mara Whitlock, a female CEO whose name appeared in business magazines and morning news segments, always framed by confidence and success. Jonah knew her only as a figure glimpsed from a distance, moving briskly through sunlit corridors with a presence that made people straighten their posture without knowing why. That morning, sunlight poured through the lobby windows, turning dust motes into floating sparks as Jonah finished inspecting a conference floor. He had been asked to check a malfunctioning phone line in an executive meeting room, a small task he welcomed because it kept his hands busy and his mind quiet. He connected a headset to test the line, listening for the dial tone that would confirm his work was done. Instead, he heard a voice, soft and unguarded, carried by a speaker that should have gone silent. It was Mara Whitlock, and she had forgotten to hang up. At first, Jonah tried to pull the headset away, instinctively respecting boundaries he rarely saw respected for himself. But the sound lingered, and then something in her voice changed, dropping the polished cadence of a leader and revealing something fragile underneath. The words that followed were not sharp commands or strategic plans. They were heavy, trembling confessions spilling into what she believed was an empty room. She spoke of the loneliness that followed success, of the relentless pressure to be strong when every day felt like standing on a ledge with the wind pushing harder. She admitted that she had lost someone she loved years ago to an illness she could not outwork or outsmart, and how every achievement since then felt hollow without anyone to share it with. The truth in her voice was heartbreaking, stripped of performance, and Jonah stood frozen in the daylight, the headset pressed to his ear, feeling as if he had stumbled upon a private prayer. Jonah's life had been shaped by loss too, though of a different kind. His wife had died suddenly when their son Owen was only 3, leaving Jonah to navigate grief while learning how to braid lunches with bedtime stories. Daytime was when the absence felt loudest, when the world moved forward without pause and expected him to keep pace. Hearing Mara's vulnerability cracked something open inside him, a recognition that pain did not discriminate by title or income. In that moment, she was not a distant CEO, but another human being, standing alone in the light, holding together what she could. The line finally went dead, and Jonah removed the headset with shaking hands. He finished his task mechanically, his mind replaying her words, the raw honesty that had slipped through a technological mistake. He left the room with a heaviness that followed him down the bright hallways and out into the sunlit street. All day, as he managed work orders and answered routine questions, he felt changed, as if he had been entrusted with a fragile truth that demanded care. He wondered what it meant to truly see someone beyond the surface, and whether the world would be different if people allowed themselves to be seen. In the days that followed, Jonah noticed small things he had overlooked before. He saw how Mara arrived early, walking alone through the lobby with a cup of coffee she barely touched, her eyes scanning reports instead of faces. He noticed the pause she took by the window in her office, looking out at the city bathed in daylight, as if searching for something beyond the skyline. Jonah carried his own struggles quietly, balancing overtime requests with school pickups. But now he moved through the building with a new awareness, understanding that everyone was carrying something invisible. Life tested him soon after. Owen fell ill, a persistent daytime fever that kept Jonah awake at night and distracted at work. Medical bills loomed, and Jonah felt the familiar panic of being one emergency away from collapse. He considered asking for extra shifts, even though it would mean less time with his son, because survival often demanded sacrifices that hurt the most. On one particularly bright afternoon, Jonah was called to Mara's office to discuss a routine contract renewal, something that should have been straightforward. The room was flooded with natural light, plants lining the windowsills, the city alive beyond the glass. Jonah sat across from Mara, aware of the unspoken truth he carried. She looked composed, professional, yet there was a softness in her eyes that matched the voice he had overheard. As they discussed logistics, Jonah struggled with an internal conflict, wondering if acknowledging her humanity would cross a line he could not uncross. He kept his responses factual, his posture respectful, but something shifted when she asked about his availability, noticing the strain he tried to hide.